Hello, today I wanted to do a video explaining how I do car videos. Now, just to review the methodology is I arrive at Ross's house. He's the one who has the cars. I do about 45 minutes video recording, about an hour driving. Then of course I drive home, and then there's about 5 hours editing and then uploading and all that stuff. I try to keep it under 8 to 10 hours. And my goal is to produce a 5 to 10 minute video. I want videos to be 5 to 10 minutes long because I want there to be a rhythm. I find sometimes we can go off into the weeds with details. This is a general purpose review, so I always try every sentence to have a point in it, or either an opinion that was supported by 2 previous points. And that's my methodology. So that way, if somebody's watching, with time you get subscribers and they have things that they like about you and things they like less. Well, if they know that something new is always coming, I think they'll stay with you until the end. The equipment I use is a Canon T7i. Before that, I had a T5i. And I also use a GoPro for the drive, which is a GoPro 4. I use also my iPhone 7 and also the Canon M100. Before that, I had an M10. Why do I use this equipment? Well, it's full HD and 60 frames per second. The advantage of filming in 60 frames per second allows you to, when things are a little bit wobbly, to slow it down by 50%. And you keep your image quality. Now, of course, sometimes that won't work and you will have to use shake stabilization. Shake stabilization has 2 disadvantages. 1, it crops your frame and reduces the video quality, and 2, it creates sometimes some awkward movements. You're going to see like the things move unnaturally in your frame. Could I go 4K? Yes, I could, but you have to remember this YouTube channel is basically a money-losing operation. So buying a 4K camera would cost about, I don't know, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. Then I'd have to buy the glass for that, which would be another $4,000. Then after that, that would generate a lot of data, right? Because those 4K files are huge. I'd have to buy another computer to crush all that data in a reasonable time because of that workflow. I'm trying to keep the workflow as low as possible. And right now, it's just not worth it. So I focus on using these cameras to the max. That is to say, I set up for white balance. I set up for, with the Canon T7i, that is to say, I set up for white balance. I set up for full manual mode. And I try to get the most professional looking shots. I like a documentary style. I'm not into gimmicky editing. For example, this, and this, and this, and this, and this. It works well when Casey Neistat does it. That's his thing. However, I find it's just not for me, right? I'm 43 years old. I'm not 23 years old. It doesn't work for me. When I see it, I find it's annoying, and I don't want to annoy the people when they're watching my videos. I just prefer a nice, slick documentary style, slow panning, slow slider, slow close-ups, fade-ins, nothing too jarring. So, like I said, I do the exterior shots with the Canon T7i. I do some of the interior shots. That's a little bit harder. I do some with the T7i. I do some with the Canon M100, and I also do some with the iPhone. I rarely, or if never, do any with the GoPro. Now, of course, by using all this low-end equipment, I have a very not awesome dynamic range. And for those of you who don't know, just skip 30 seconds. For those of you who know what dynamic range, but are not quite sure what it is, really, when it comes to the amateur photographer, you have a certain amount of stops or range that the camera can see between something that is light and something that is dark. And if you push beyond those levels, you will lose all detail in your whiteness. We call that blowing out the whites. Or at the other end, we will crush the blacks or not be able to see any detail in those blacks. The more higher end the camera, the bigger the dynamic range is. And for car reviewers, that's pretty important, especially when you're filming the interior of cars. You'll notice as this footage shows, there seems to be almost the place where your feet is, it's almost all black, right? Of course it isn't black, but because of the limits of the dynamic range, you can't see it. And it's the same thing with the sky often when I'm shooting these videos. So It really shows up, especially when you're filming on a sunny day, the harsh shadows of the sun and the bright sunlight, the bright sunlit car. That contrast is sometimes too much for the camera to take. It's the limitations of shooting with crappy equipment, let's face it. Also, another thing is that I try as much as possible, but of course I can't really choose, but to shoot in the shade or cloudy areas. When you have cloud, the light is well dispersed and it creates less harsh shadows, and therefore all the levels of brightness fit inside the dynamic range of your camera. Anyways, I don't want it to be too technical, but this is how to shoot a video. There is a little bit of technical. One of the best things I ever bought was a high quality tripod with a video head. I had gone to Lozo here in Montreal. I often buy online, but for this I just wanted to go to the store and try things out, and the very helpful salesman convinced me. I was there to buy a $200-300 tripod. He convinced me. He said, you know what, you should buy a really high quality tripod, because if you're going to be making videos every week, you're going to be dragging around that tripod, you're going to be filming in windy conditions. It's going to help your shots if you have a nice high quality smooth panning tripod with video head. And I bought like a $500 plus tax Benro, and it really works well. It does a great job, and I have to recommend it to all YouTubers. Also, a slider to make those slick sliding shots. And when you have a good tripod, you can put your slider on your tripod and have more dynamic shooting. It just makes things awesome. In fact, I found some of my shots I thought were so good that it didn't even need voiceover, and I was just using the slider or slick tripod movement. You'll see if you ever get there. Good sound is very important. I don't think great sound is that important, but you need a certain minimum level. So for example, now I'm using this lavalier mic. I use that on the drive. When I'm doing the voiceover, I use the Blue Yeti microphone. It's a very good microphone. It's not a best, it's not a professional microphone, but it's an acceptable quality. Remember that most people are watching this either on their computer, on their cell phone, and on their iPads, on their tablets. So I don't think it's that important to be such high level quality, especially if you're an amateur. However, when you watch it on television, you can see that maybe it's a bit less professional than, let's say, a television broadcast, but this is YouTube and it is free. Music is very important to my videos. When you post things on YouTube, especially I monetize my videos, I need what's called royalty-free music. And royalty-free music means that the author of, or the creator of that music, allows you to use that music without paying them royalties. That's where the term royalty-free comes from. Now, this royalty-free music can be made by a content creator, which allows you to use it for free. There are YouTube channels that provide royalty-free music for free. All you have to do is credit them, or you can buy them from outlets that sell royalty-free music. I have done both. When you buy royalty-free music, it's always a little bit higher quality. However, there are some pretty dynamic content creators out there who make incredible royalty-free music. I cannot believe they're giving this away. Final thoughts on filming cars. Well, I would have to say, when you're filming cars, try to be as creative as possible. And don't be afraid to get your inspiration from other places. For example, I notice a lot, I watch on and off some NASCAR. And sometimes it's nice to see the shots that they have, let's say, for example, in pit lane. That can inspire you. Also, another thing that may sound weird is when you start filming and you start doing photography or anything, you start to notice mundane things. Like, for example, I was watching a video review on a camera, and they were filming a ballerina. And this very intelligent content creator, as the ballerina was lifting up her leg, she slightly raised the camera. I thought that was very dynamic. I do that now when opening the trunk of the car to show the space. So that's an example of where you can get your inspiration from all kinds of different places. My antennas are really up for that. Like, they're really on the listen for those things. And when I'm watching mundane stuff, it could be a documentary about World War II, or it could be anything. I'm always looking at the camera style, how that person's filming, the choice of lights, and that may or may not inspire you when you're doing your car reviews. I don't really care about comments about how I should use this equipment, it would be better, or this equipment would be better. Yeah, for sure, if it's more expensive, it would be better. I know that. I don't need to be told that. However, if you have constructive ideas, I'm always willing to hear them. And I hope you enjoyed this video.